Well, I know you had some questions that people had sent
Yes,
in. Do you have any questions for me?
I do. So in Selling Later, we have this community where sellers and buyers can connect, and professionals are there too, and they can ask questions. But I asked in advance for some questions, and the last time I did this, the person I interviewed got in trouble. So I hope this one goes better,
I'll be very careful.
even though what he said was opinion based and factual. But we'll skip that for another day. Okay, so the first one was in regards to relocation, like how does that work? Does your company find
Mm.
you a real estate agent, or does the relocation company find you an agent, or
That's a
who's?
great question. I didn't understand how corporate relocation worked, and I had done 8 corporate relocations before I became a realtor. And then it was like, oh, wow, if I had known all that, and Chris Roberts is still in here, and I was telling him that the other day, if I had known everything that I know, I would have had more empathy for my real estate agents because I just didn't understand how it worked. And that the agents that I had to use, we were usually limited to a company or 2 brokerages, and we could pick an agent out of that. Um, but what I didn't realize is that they were making about 50% of that commission. And I often talk about the challenge for that is that relocation client, they're moving, like for in our case, we were moving from Germany to Texas, right? It was a huge move for us. We were deer in the headlights, right? We didn't know the difference between Frisco and Fort Worth. We were having to pick schools for our kids, and we didn't know which end was up. And we had an agent, though, that was making 50% of her commission. So, how committed was she to being available and giving us the time that we needed? And we didn't really have any other resources. We didn't know anybody. We didn't have anybody to ask questions of. We didn't have anybody to help us. It's one of the reasons why I've been a consultant for Pivot with Lynn Greenberg, who's founded that, and Chris, that now works for them, is because they kind of help solve that. Let me answer those questions before I get committed to a real estate agent. That's what I didn't know how to do. Yes, I was limited to a realtor in a certain brokerage, um, but I didn't know to say, you know what, we're going to move to Frisco. I need a Frisco based agent.
Right.
Or I need to know that that agent that I'm working with is available this weekend. She doesn't have little league games. She's not working with other clients in from out of town. So I didn't know the questions to ask. So it wasn't, I just thought they were not giving me the time they needed. What I came to understand is I just wasn't asking the right questions. Um, and sometimes you have a choice between using the relocation or doing a lump sum. I think it's really figuring out which one's going to be better for you. There's a lot of marked up prices in relocation. I found out after we moved to Boston that the relocation cost of our move was $180,000.
What?
I know.
From
It,
Boston to Texas?
from Texas to Boston.
Okay.
We
Wait.
moved ourselves from Boston
Wow.
to Texas, and I can guarantee you it didn't cost that. No, part of that was
Right.
corporate housing, but the corporate housing cost was about $10,000 a month. And I can guarantee you
Wow.
that the 2 bedroom apartment we were renting in the middle of the college district was not a $10,000 a month apartment.
Right.
The commissions that were used to sell our house, we had to sell it through a traditional brokerage, 6%. I couldn't list it. Again, I found the buyer just through social media. That expense is just to me no longer needed. And then when I asked for a real estate agent on the other end, I was really excited because I thought I knew the questions to ask this time. We're just going to rent for the first year before we buy. So I said, I really need somebody that understands the apartment rental market. Well, they gave me an agent that was a single family home specialist. And the whole time he kept talking about where I would buy in a year from now.
Right.
So I was a loss leader for him. He was helping me. He wasn't going to get paid very much for helping me find an apartment, but he was hoping to make money on the other end when I went to buy. And so I ended up finding my apartment again. And this was I think the 5th home out of 8 through relocation companies that I actually found because my real estate agent wasn't focused on what it was that I needed.
Right.
And now
Right.
that we have technology, we have everything we need in the palm of our hand, the consumer can find it. So, not to bash relocation. I mean, relocation was great. And they did a lot of things like paying for our temporary housing and taking care of the cost of the moving van and all of that and full pack moves. But there's some real challenges when it comes to the real estate piece. That was the problem we always had, right? Things could get broken in the move. The corporate housing might not be the best, but those could be fixed with money or finding a different place to live. But that real estate agent really determined how we found home, right?
Right.
Not just finding a house, but how we got settled in. And I think it really just takes having been on both sides of the transaction to really get and see some ways that could be changed. So I don't know how much that answers your question or the person that answered that question. Other than I think corporate relocation and understanding the commissions and the splits and all of that is about as complicated as understanding the real estate industry.
It took me like 2 years to figure that out. So we don't need to figure it out today.